Hello and welcome to the Indiana State Police Public Information Program. I'm your host today, Sergeant Dave Burston, Public Information Officer with the Indianapolis State Police Post. Today we're going to be talking about a very important subject, and that's the safety of your children, or if you're grandparents, the safety of your grandchildren. And with us to talk about that is Judy Sheese. Judy, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's good to have you. And Judy, you are the director of the Automotive Safety Children Program at Riley Hospital, correct?
That's right.
That's a pretty long title. I have to work on getting that right. I always want to transpose one word one way or the other. And as our audience is looking here, they can see that we've got the couch filled up with an array of different types of child safety seats. And what we're going to talk about today is the importance of properly installing those. Give us some opening comments about what are we looking at here?
Well, this is just a very, very tiny example of the type of seats that are on the market. And what I've done is just brought some representative seats for different types of seats. This seat that we have right here is an infant-only seat. And this seat is for children only to about 20 pounds and a year old. After your child's 20 pounds and a year old, then you need to purchase a new seat, or you could use this type of seat. This is called a convertible seat, and it can be used for children from 20.
So by convertible, just what it says, that would save you from having to buy a second seat.
Right. This is very nice because it's convenient and it fits children very well. And these are the types of seats, these infant-only seats, that you'll see a lot in supermarkets that have the handles on them. Parents can take them in and out of cars.
So it's also, in its own way, it's convertible too. They can carry the child with it. So there's the convenience factor there.
Right. So these are convenient. That's probably the best thing about them is the value because of the convenience. But this is also a seat that parents can buy. It's called a convertible also. And this one can be used from birth to 40 pounds or so. Some go to 43, but mostly 40. It's used rear facing until the child is a year old and weighs 20 pounds. And then after the child reaches that age and weight, you turn it around and it's used forward facing. The advantages to this seat is you only have to buy one to 40 pounds. The disadvantages are this is not one you're going to pick up and take in the supermarket with you because it's a little
That's probably something
heavier.
You're going to leave left in the car. It's going to stay there all the time. And there's the convenience factor there of that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. You only have to install it one time. The other seat is I wanted to bring because it's sort of a new type. Now this is an older model of this. This is a kind of a new generation car
That's
seat.
the end one. Okay.
The end one. There are actually only two manufacturers who market this type of seat. And the advantages to that seat is that it can be used for children from 30 to 45 pounds with the harnesses. And after the child hits 45 pounds, take the harnesses off and you have a booster seat that you use with a regular lap shoulder belt.
The regular seat belt, okay.
Right.
So that gives, the biggest complaints I hear from parents is my child said they can't see out, they want to be able to look at what's going on. And from a child's point of view, it's got to be pretty boring to be staring at the dashboard for the whole trip. So that lets them sit up to be able to look out.
That's right, and parents say, well, my child won't stay still. I put the child in a seatbelt and he or she won't stay still. Well, part of the reason is what you're just talking about. It's boring. I mean, you can't see. So, if you have a child who's under 60 pounds, we recommend anyway that children be in car seats. One of these types of car seats, this one to 20, that one to 40, and then that one to 60.
So once they hit 60 pounds, they're ready to just be in the regular seat with the regular seat belt.
Yes.
Now, are there concerns as far as the size of the child? Maybe they're at 60 pounds, but as far as height with the regular shoulder harness, are there still adjustment problems there? Sometimes.
Some manufacturers now car manufacturers are responding to that by making shoulder harnesses that are adjustable, and that's a good answer to that. There aren't good answers to a lot of other problems if you have the very worst thing parents can do, and what we see quite often is they may have a child who's 4 years old and he or she's outgrown this 40 pounds.
And they're still trying to stuff the child into that seat.
Well, they may be doing that, or what they may do is use a regular seat belt, but put the shoulder harness behind their back or under the arm. And that's not a good option, and people don't realize that that's a very dangerous thing. If you have a child who's in that age group and that under 60 pounds whose seat belt doesn't fit, it's a good idea to try a booster seat.
And the funny thing is, and I'll probably be called on the carpet for saying this, but the safety of children is important. there are some deficiencies in the way the current child safety belt laws are written, because there's so much confusion with parents and with police officers also. I've been stopped before. I know other officers have been stopped before, and somebody says, well, at 40 pounds or 50 pounds, I take my child out of the seat. What do I do? But I think our law is set up by the age of the child versus the weight. And every child doesn't weigh the same amount at a specific age.
Right, and that's very true. And that's one of the number one questions we get asked in the office. People will call and say, when can I take my child out of his or her safety seat? And what we say is, not until you have to. If you have a child who's 40 pounds, move them to a booster seat. Parents seem to think that's some sort of rite of passage when you can finally get your child out of a car seat. But we want you to keep them in the car seat as long as possible, because they're better protected there. The same thing with children who are rear-facing. We recommend children be rear-facing as long as possible, and that's to 20 pounds. But oftentimes it's another little rite of passage. Okay, the baby gets to be a certain age and they want to turn them around. But if they're not 20 pounds yet, keep them rear-facing.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the rear-facing and forward-facing issues, because there are some things to be concerned about as related to airbags, because more and more cars have airbags. What are some of the new things that we're learning about that?
That's a real good point that parents may not be aware of. Most parents know that, from what we've seen, that you can never, under any circumstance, put a child who's rear-facing, who's under a year old and 20 pounds, can never put that child in the front seat if you have a passenger side airbag. That's never an option.
There's one time, often we don't use absolute words, but this is one time to emphasize to never, ever have your child facing forward in the front seat, passenger seat, if there's an airbag.
Facing rear.
Facing rear.
Right.
Never have them facing rear with the airbag.
But what you're saying about forward is true too. Now, I just recently, last week I believe it was, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the National Transportation Safety Board, and just today the CDC, Center for Disease Control, released a consumer warning for parents not to put their children, even if they're forward facing, in a car seat, or if they're sitting in a seatbelt, to put them in front of an airbag, because what can happen if the child is too close to the airbag when it deploys,
yes.
It can be very deadly. There have been several fatalities now in the country where children who, even 5, 7, and 9 years old, who were sitting in a car restrained with a seatbelt in front of an airbag, the airbag deployed, they were killed. The reason was that they were, we think, we don't know for sure, but that the child was out of position, maybe was leaning forward to do something, and when the airbag deployed, it hit them. And these were fairly low-speed crashes, so it's very, very important that parents put their children in the back. If, for some reason, they have no choice but to put their children in the front seat. Now, again, like we said, that's an absolute. If you have a rear-facing infant, you can't do that at all. But if you have a child that you must put who's facing forward in the front seat, then the seat must be as far back from the airbag as it will go. That's very, very important.
So those are some key points that we can't emphasize enough. Now, some other issues that have been brought up before that I think are worth mentioning is sometimes you have brothers and sisters, and I'm talking about adults. One has had a child, and then they've had a car seat that they use for 2 or 3 or 4 years, and then when their brother or sister, they have their children, say, oh, here's a car seat, use ours. Now, I think there are some things that people need to know about used car seats. Right,
and used car seats, those may be fine. We're not saying never use a used car seat. What we're saying, if you have a used car seat, there are some things you need to think about. Number one are the instructions with that seat. We're going to talk later about how to put a car seat in and how important instructions can be. You don't know if all the parts are there if you don't have the instructions, and that's very important. And the other thing, did the parent who had the car seat before, did they send in a little registration form? And I think this seat right here has a registration form. And all parents, when you buy a new car seat, need to send this in. If there's ever a recall against this seat,
that's how they're notified.
That's how you're notified. Now, if you don't know if that has occurred, you can always call the car seat company and ask if there's been a recall. And what you need to do is you can call us to get the phone number, or there's usually a phone number on the car seat. When you call, you need the date of manufacture of the seat and the model number, and they'll be able to tell you if there's been a recall.
Because some seats have been recalled, and probably the more realistic scenario would be not so much family members swapping car seats back and forth, but somebody knows, oh, we're having a child, maybe they're on a budget, so they think, oh, I'll start scouring the garage sales. To me, that's the last place you want to skimp on buying a child safety seat, is going to a garage sale.
Right, right, and the last criteria that fits in really well with, you don't want to use a car seat that you don't know the history, because if that car seat has ever been in a crash, don't use it.
It's a one-time, and that for people, if they should replace their car seat, their child seat, if they've been involved in a collision.
That's exactly right. And a lot of the times, most of the times that we've dealt with, the insurance companies will pay to replace them because it's a safety equipment feature. So parents should never use a car seat that's been in a crash.
Good point. Good point. Now, I'm going to ask you a tougher question here, and hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot too much, but are there recommendations that you would make as far as who makes the best child safety seat?
That's a #1 question when people call. We get dozens of calls a week about that. No, the answer is simply no. There is no best car seat. All of these car seats that you see here, any car seat that you see in the store, have been federally approved.
Okay.
The best car seat for you is the one that fits your car, fits your the vehicle seat, fits the belt system, and fits your child.
It comes back into some of the personal taste issues of talking about how convenient that you want it to be while still doing the job, like the baby seat here versus the toddler seat and the other type. What if there's a situation where mom or dad are on a very tight budget and they can't literally cannot afford to buy a car seat?
Then call us, because around the state, or call your local hospital. There are loan programs throughout the state. Some of those give away car seats, some of them loan, but there are certainly options throughout the state for car seat giveaways.
Oh, and we're talking about calling your office at Riley Hospital. We probably ought to tell everybody what that phone number is.
Our phone number, it's a toll-free number. It's 1-800-KID-IN-CAR. That's KID, the letter N, and CAR.
And we're going to put that up on the screen, and then people will be able to see that. So that is 1-800-KID-IN-CAR.
That's right.
People can call up. I imagine that you probably get more calls than you can. You're always looking for seats, aren't you?
We can certainly always use seats. Sometimes people call and say, you know, I'm finished using this seat and I want to give it to you. We don't take used seats in because we have no place to put those. But
the intention is good. Somebody
Yes.
says, oh, somebody else can benefit from this. But actually, if there's somebody watching the program today and it's a corporate entity or somebody from a company, if they want to make a donation, you're always willing to accept those.
always. I mean, we certainly would always put that sort of thing to good use. And then there are people who don't have the means to buy car seats. Now, some hospitals are doing better, where are doing a very nice thing where when children are born in their hospital, they're actually given a seat when they leave. And there are several hospitals in Indiana who do that.
Are there any other points that, because there are so many things that we could be talking about, but are there other points that you're frequently faced with as far as concerns about seats, how to install them, safety points that come to mind?
I think the #1 thing, we just did a survey of car seats, and what we found in the clinics that we did were about 90% of the people who used their car seats didn't use them according to the manufacturer's instructions. Anytime you use your car seat in a way that it's not been designed, it decreases the effectiveness of the seat.
So this is either people that didn't read the directions or they didn't understand the directions.
Right, and what I always tell people is that you assume that putting a car seat in your car is a simple thing, but it may not be a simple thing, and it's not as easy as you think it might be. So take that extra time and read those instructions. And then if you're not sure, call our toll-free number and we can maybe talk you through it. If that doesn't work, your car seat manufacturer has a help number in the instructions.
Well, I think you've brought us up to a very good point right here, that let's go out into a car and let's actually show people how to install one and talk about some of the different pointers, the pluses and minuses, and reinforce some of the things that we've already talked about. So we've got a car set up for you. Let's go do that.
Okay.
Disasters like a tornado, earthquake, flood, or oil spill may never personally touch your life, but one disaster might. motor vehicle accidents. Sadly, many of the children who die each year on our highways are not buckled up. Don't let this disaster strike your family. Keep your children safe and protected by teaching proper and consistent use of car seats or safety belts.
The best thing that parents can do when they get a car seat is, first of all, it's very, very important that they read the instructions that come with their car seat, because each car seat is different, so there's no absolute for every car seat. And the second thing that parents need to do is to read the owner's manual that comes with their car, because there may need to be some adjustments made to their car, to their seat belt. After they get their car seat, they need to then get into the car with the car seat, because parents will assume that putting a car seat in is a fairly simple thing, and it should be, but it isn't always. So go ahead and get into the car, put the car seat in the position that you're going to be installing it. Now, we usually say that the middle of the back seat is always the safest place to put a car seat, and that's generally the case. But there may be times when parents can't do that because maybe they have more than one car seat in the back seat, or they have more passengers back there. If you're installing a car seat in the middle of the back seat, usually you have this kind of belt. It's called a manual belt. And what you do with this, when you're going to connect the belt, and simply to tighten it, you pull here, and that's how it tightens. And those are fairly simple. So if you're installing a car seat with this type of a belt, the only thing that you need to do is to install the car seat, tighten it, and then routinely check to be sure that the car seat belt has stayed tight, because sometimes they will loosen. And if they do loosen, then you need to call your car manufacturer to see what you should do about that. But if you don't have as an option the middle of the back seat, parents usually use the side in the back. And what we're now recommending is that you put your child in the back seat, especially if you have an airbag. Now, parents say, but my child wants to ride in the front seat. Is that okay? And there are some cases that it may be okay. But if you have an infant who's riding rear-facing, you cannot put that child in the front seat if you have a driver's or passenger side airbag. Also, if you have a forward-facing seat like this and you want to put the child in the front seat, that's not a good idea either, because that airbag is going to explode at a very high velocity, so you want that child away. Now, the new thing is, too, what if you have a child who's 6 years old in a seatbelt? Is it okay to put them in the front seat? If you have an airbag in the passenger side, put the child in the back seat. And again, if that child happens to be out of position, if that airbag deploys, that child could be injured. So we recommend that you always, if possible, put the child in the back seat. Now, what this car is equipped with is something that's real important, and we've already done a little bit of adjustment with the belt on this side, so I wanted to show you this one. If your car has this type of a belt that you can grab what's called the latch plate here, and it slides freely up and down your belt, then you're going to need an additional piece of equipment for this belt. And the type of equipment that you need is already on this belt. I've installed it. And it's called a locking clip. A locking clip basically is just going to keep that latch plate from sliding and lock your car seat in. Now, one other thing that you need to do before you install your locking clip is, first of all, see if your car manual says to do that. And the other thing is to look on the belt, because it'll tell you if you need one or not. But if you have a sliding latch plate, generally you need one, a locking clip. Now, there are some exceptions. In all the new cars, if you have a 95 car, you're going to find if you pull your belt all the way out, like this, it's going to lock when you feed it back in, like that. Now, this one won't, because this is an older car. So that's something you need to check. How do you know? Look in your owner's manual for your car. So if you have this type of belt, what you're going to do is you're going to insert the seat belt. Go ahead and insert it, tighten the seat down, then take the belt back out and put this locking clip right here where you've measured how long the seat belt needs to be. Well, let me show you that. Seems like a lot of work just to get a car seat in, but it's very, very important steps, and you don't want to miss any of them. And I know this is confusing to try to explain to you in just a few minutes how to do it, and that's why it's so vital that you read those instructions that come with your car seat and with your car. Okay, now what I've done is I've already put the seat belt through, I've tightened it, and now I've held the belt together when I've undone it so that I know that this is how tight my seat belt needs to be. Okay, then I'm going to take my locking clip, which comes with your car seat. I'm going to place it in the back, like this. I'm going to place it like that. Now that's only going to be about 1/4 to 1/2 inch above that latch plate. Okay, now I'm going to insert the seat belt. And I'll get my watch caught, hopefully. Okay, and Dave, can I ask you just to push down on that seat a little bit, because this is something parents don't realize, that you need to give that seat a nice little push and then lock the seat belt. Thanks. Now what you've done is you've taken up any slack in that belt. Now, how do you tell if it's installed correctly? You're going to grab it in the middle of the seat, pull it forward, and it shouldn't move. If your seat moves back and forth freely, then it's not tight enough in your car. Now, when I've installed this seat, what I've done, this is installed for a toddler. And infant seats are different. They're going to be facing the rear, but the belt installation is essentially the same. So that's very, very important. Now, what people tend to do, Dave and I were talking earlier about when you have an infant, you keep the infant rear facing until he or she's 20 pounds and a year old. Then you're going to turn them around to face forward. And this seat is adaptable. This can be for an infant or a toddler. It's going to be used rear facing for an infant, forward facing for a toddler. But what people do, they're often very good initially reading their instructions and looking in their car manual. But then when they turn the seat around, they don't reread the instructions. So they make some mistakes. And I want to just briefly talk about some of the mistakes and how you might look for those types of mistakes. Number one, when you turn the seat around from a rear-facing seat to a forward-facing seat, you're going to change the recline. When this seat is rear-facing, it's going to be reclined for an infant. When it's forward-facing, it's going to be more upright. So check to make sure that it's the correct recline. Also, the belt's going to feed differently. For an infant, it's going to go through the front. When you turn it around for a toddler, it's going to go through the back, so make sure that. And the other thing, and the last thing you need to be sure of, is that you move the harnesses. If you have an infant and you turn the seat around, then you need to move the harnesses too, and parents often don't do that. Be sure to read your instructions when you change use of your seat. And those are just some basic tips that parents can do very quickly. It takes a moment, but it might save your child's life.
For many disasters, it is only after they happen that people can be helped. But each of us can prevent one of the leading disasters that injures or kills our children every year: motor vehicle accidents. You can stop needless injury or death before it strikes your family or friends. Use safety belts or car seats properly and consistently for every ride.
Well, as you can see by all of the effort that Judy went through, it takes some time and a commitment on your behalf as a parent to make sure that that seat is properly installed. You can't just take it out of the box, throw it in there, and expect it to fit. You've got to go through the time to make sure that clip is properly adjusted. You're going to need a second person to push down on the seat, get it in there, and then check to make sure it's in there properly. But now, Judy, we've gone through all the work of getting the seat properly installed, and now we've got our toddler or our baby that's getting older and older, and they're starting to get a little vocal, and they don't want to sit in the seat. What do parents do? What should they do about that?
Above all, be consistent. Children will invariably test a parent to see if they can get out of the seat. And a lot of times it simply is because perhaps the harnesses aren't tight enough, and if the harnesses are too loose, the child may try to get out. The harness clip, like this one here, should be at armpit level. If it's not, then the child may be able to get out of the seat. So they're going to try. But as a parent, if your child climbs out of your seat, you need to put them immediately back in. If the harnesses have 1 or 2 fingers distance, that's not too snug. That's the right amount of snugness you want. You're not hurting your child by putting them snugly in a seat. You're taking the best care possible for that child. If the child gets out, and if it's possible, pull over to the side of the road, put them back in. And every time, do that.
May make for a long trip, but better to arrive alive.
Well, once the parents, that's true, but once the child sees that you're going to keep putting them back in, they're going to give up.
The consistency.
Exactly.
And because kids are going to do that, they're going to be testing, pushing, how far can what can I get away with?
That's right, and that's a normal thing for a child. I mean, that's what children will do. Positive reinforcement. I mean, if your child has been getting out of the seat and then does very well, then reward that. Do some positive reinforcement. That's so much better than saying, get back in your seat. The child's not going to do that. But if you put them back in and reward them for staying there, that's going to keep that good habit going.
And we were just, during our break, when we were coming back in from doing the installation, our director, Kevin Johnson, was just talking about how his child is 5 years old now and knows that he needs to be in that seat and expects to be in it. And that's the key point, and obviously Kevin has been consistent on having his child in the seat, and his son expects to be in it.
Mm-hmm. And that's really good. I mean, if you develop that habit very young, children grow up with that habit. And oftentimes children are the best modelers for adults.
They help remind mom and dad to put on
right.
your seatbelt.
That's right.
And that's a good reminder to have. Now I want to ask you, we're coming close to the end of our show. There's probably there are top 2, 3, or 4 things that you probably see consistent mistakes being made with car seats. Can you summarize those for us?
Sure. The number one thing that we see is that seat belts are just too loose to adequately secure a seat. And to know if your car seat is too loose, if you can move it freely, that's too loose, and you need to work on getting that tighter. Look in your owner's manual for your car. It'll show you how to do that. Now, if your belt's loose, you may need a locking clip. Maybe you forgot your locking clip.
And every car seat comes with a locking clip.
Every car seat comes, it's attached to the back of the seat.
So you don't have to buy, that's not an extra item you have to go get.
No, but if you don't have one, if you lose it for some reason, you can buy them at baby stores. They're about $1 a piece. It's a good dollar well spent. The other thing is the harnesses. You know, we talked about the harnesses need to be moved up when the child's turn. Mm-hmm. Parents don't realize that, and that's very, very important too.
Thanks for summarizing those. Well, we've come to the close of our time together, and Judy, I'd like to thank you so much for being on the program.
Thanks for inviting me.
And again, our guest today has been Judy Sheets from the Automotive Safety for Children at Riley Hospital, and I want to get that 800 number in again. That's 1-800-KID-IN-CAR, KIDNCAR. I've been your host today, Sergeant Dave Burston, Public Information Officer for the Indianapolis Post, reminding you that when you're out driving in your car, whether you have a child or not, buckle up. The life you save may be your own. Till next time, drive safely.